שלום לכם ותודה שאתם מצטרפים אלינו לחיים חדשים, סדרת השיחות הלימודיות עם הרב דוקטור מיכאל לייטמן. שלום הרב לייטמן.
שלום לכולם.
שלום ניצה מזוז.
שלום.
ואנחנו מזמינים אתכם לשמוע את השיחה שלנו היום, שהיא בנושא החברה הישראלית. התחלנו לדבר על זה בשיחות הקודמות, והיום אנחנו רוצים לקחת את אחת התופעות המרכזיות, אם לא החשובה בכולם, בתוך ההוויה הישראלית, צבא ההגנה לישראל, ולהסתכל עליה במשקפיים מיוחדות. אנחנו רוצים להסתכל על צה"ל כדוגמה לחיבור. דיברנו בשיחות הקודמות עם הרב לייטמן שהחזון החדש שהוא מציע לחברה הישראלית זה חזון שכולנו הופכים להיות משפחה אחת. מה זה בדיוק משפחה אחת? איך מתחברים בתוכה? מה זה החיבור הזה שאותו הוא מציב לנו כיעד שאליו יכולה וצריכה וראויה להתקדם החברה הישראלית כדי לקחת את כל אחד מאיתנו בתוכה אל חיים חדשים, טובים.
How to be one family so that as an Israeli society we'll be able to live a new life, a better life. And we want to understand all of that through the discussion today about the IDF as an example for connection. So Nitza, why don't you help us into the discussion? So as you said, you can look at the IDF from all kinds of angles and ways. And we chose to look during this show at the social context, the connection that happens between people, between soldiers. And we tried to follow the process of what happens to such a soldier from the moment he's enlisted, what happens to him during the beginning stages and afterwards, even when he comes and serves in the reserve duty afterwards. And we saw that one of the most powerful things that characterize our army is the spirit of the IDF, which is something that is instilled in a soldier from the very first moment that he's drafted. The soldiers receive a kind of booklet that has all these values, the spirit in it, and they carry it with them during their whole service and it becomes a part of them. They go through a process that's very deep of understanding of what are these values truly and how to fulfill them. And these values of the spirit of IDF lean on the traditions of the Jewish people, of Israel, of the soldiers, the fighters, and of course on universal values. One of the most important values, most meaningful values that we will want to expand on is the value of friendship, of camaraderie. It's the value that our soldiers are taught so that they'd be able to become as one unit, as one body, in a unified, connected way, in such a way that each person, each soldier will be able to give the maximum of himself for the friends. And we wanted to take a look at this and observe it, because when you talk about the vision of this Israeli society with this spirit that we said that is so missing today in society, this Israeli spirit that really makes us feel as one family, is something that we'd like to understand better, especially by taking a look at what happens inside the IDF, and maybe take that as an example. So maybe we could really begin to take a look at what is this connection in the IDF? What happens there? How do you feel about it? Do you think there's a connection between that and to the connection that you're talking about? First of all, we should understand that the people who come to the IDF, they stop thinking about the 1,001 things that a person has to worry about in the day-to-day life. Food is given to them, clothing they receive, they're given place to sleep. That means that one's ego is vacant from worrying about these things. He just simply doesn't need to. He has whatever's necessary for his existence, and all the rest you don't dream about, because also the atmosphere is such that it disconnects you from all those dreams about buying some new car or a new mobile phone, or even though you use them in the army, but still, it's not the same atmosphere. And so a person gets rid of a lot of things. And yet we need to say at the beginning of the talk that the matter of creation is the desire to enjoy, to receive. And through my desire, I see everything. What I see normally as I was born, just like when I was born, I see things in accordance to how much they can benefit me. I want to distance myself from what's harmful and come closer to what's beneficial. And this is the way the whole world sees reality. So then the world is what I see within my ego. If my ego changes, then I already see different things in the world as more important, and I don't see the other things. You know, there are people who can hear birds and they see colors, and other people don't even hear the birds and don't see the colors. They look for a way to make good money or good trade. So each one is drawn by his personal ego to different things. So therefore, we all act out of our ego. And if our ego, for some reason, is suddenly vacant from seeking these 101 things, it's restricted. Let's say we go to some lone island or go on a trip and somehow disconnect from all these temptations, these waves that wash over us with all kinds of nonsense that each one wants to sell to us, just so that we'll have an overdraft so that we can fill his pockets. So if we distance ourselves from all these things, then already we feel ourselves different. But this is all so that in order to take a kind of burden off of us, and the friendship is already something beyond that. It's a different approach to life. It doesn't just happen. I can go on vacation and enjoy it and not think about this world. It's enough for me to take a bag with sandwiches, a bottle of juice, and maybe go to the forest and hang out on the beach all day. It's the cheapest thing with all my family, and that's it. And also, I can disconnect from all my problems. And this gives me pleasure, even the fact that I don't feel the same pressure as I do in the day-to-day life. But if we talk about unity, here we need a new environment. It's not nature, it's not a lone island, it's not the beach. It's something else. It's not that I'm lying on the sofa and listening to Beethoven. I need a new environment. To get rid of the problems is one thing, and to fill myself up with new pleasures, this is already something else. And there's no greater pleasure than the pleasure that comes from connection. This is how we're built. But actually, that's the way it is. And in connection, there's a problem that if I, who am completely a will to receive, if I chase all kinds of pleasures that society and the media put before me, and I learn what I should enjoy from them, because in me, I have nothing. I'm like a baby. What do I want? Little things, the rest of the things that I want, I've been taught to want as I grew up. And as is written, a person doesn't die with half of his desire fulfilled. We're always trying to fulfill ourselves. So if I try to work on myself in a disciplined manner, then I begin to think it's not a problem to lessen my ego and go and live on a lone island if I can, within my ego, give room to someone else. We call these people relatives. Why? Because I begin to care for these people to a certain extent as I do for myself.
אני נתתי להם מקומות, והם נמצאים שם,
I
חיים
give
שם.
room within myself to these people, and they live there.
אשתי, עוד חברים
Mom,
כמה,
Dad,
וזה
my
הכל נמצא בתוך
friends, my
האגו שלי,
wife, and this
בתוך
is all
האגו
within
שלי.
my circle, within my
ואז אני,
ego.
חוץ
And then,
שאני
except for
דואג לעצמי,
myself,
דואג
I
באיזושהי צורה גם
care
כן
also
להם.
for them.
כי בעצם לא להם.
Because actually, it's not
אני
them
דואג
I'm caring for, I'm caring
לאגו
for
שלי,
my ego
שקיבל אותם,
that has received them
וממש קלט אותם.
and taken them in.
אבל מזה שאני קולט בתוך האגו שלי,
But
בתוך הרצון
by
שלי,
absorbing
אנשים
people,
זרים,
strange people, foreign people
מתוך
into
זה
my
יש לי,
ego, by
יש
that,
לי לגמרי הרגשה אחרת.
I get a completely different feeling.
שאני מתחיל להרגיש בזה
I begin to feel by that
איזה רוח חדשה.
a kind of new spirit.
כמה שאנשים יותר דווקא זרים, לא קרובים מדי.
The further these people are from me, the more strange they are to me,
זה כמו שבעצמי.
or estranged.
אבל אם אני
Not just like relatives, because relatives I didn't even choose, but they're mine. But if I meet with people who are far from me and even unknown to me and strange to me, if I can bring them closer and feel that we are as one,
הרצונות שלנו מתחברים.
our desires connect. Each one makes space within himself for that other person,
ואז מזה יש לנו תענוג.
and by that we have a special pleasure.
התענוג הזה הוא תענוג מרמה אחרת
It's
של
a
הקיום.
pleasure from a different level of existence.
חוץ מזה שאני מרגיש
Because
את
aside
האני שלי,
from feeling my me and all the relatives within it,
אני עכשיו פיניתי
I've
מקום ממש
now made room
ונתתי
of
שם
my
מקום.
ego from my ego and given space to others.
אפשר לדבר על זה בהרבה פילוסופיות.
We can talk about this in all kinds of philosophies and why it is this way, but it's a fact that we receive pleasure from this. And aside from pleasure, we also receive a kind of expansion of our feeling, that suddenly you feel more free, more secure, a kind of breaking out outside. You begin to feel that outside yourself, well, it's in you, because all in all, whatever I feel now, in my desire, in my ego, this is called this world. What I'll feel. If I make this space, make this room to truly feel what's outside me, meaning without my egoistic approach, this is called the upper world, the spiritual world, something above. Above what? Above my natural approach. What do you mean the spiritual world? Whatever I feel within my desire. My desire can relate to everything it experiences within it egoistically. How do I use it, every phenomenon and phenomenon, for my own pleasure, directly and simply? And then what I feel, my general feeling in such an approach, it's called this world. If I, within my own ego, begin to make room for others, meaning for this concern that I prefer to have concern not for myself but for others. There's this kind of psychological turnaround here. I begin to put in all kinds of my desires to replace the importance from myself to you, to them, to him. By that, I go from feeling myself and my reality from this world to the next world, to the upper world. When there's such a friendship, there's such interactions, and there's a higher taste, well, a little bit. It's not really, because they don't exchange desires. They're not taught to do this. This is what we now need to talk about in our integral education. But they feel a little bit of that. And therefore, they have the kind of experience that they can't get rid of to the end of their lives. They don't feel it in any other place in life, in the world. And they say, well, it's something we experienced in the youth, we were young, but however way you look at it, that's the way it is, and you can't erase it. Because, again, it's a kind of small enlightenment that you receive only if you replace yourself with others. Inside the desire, where the ego disappears, and instead of it, the desire remains, the me remains, except it is now this me that is now that now has concern for others instead of oneself. And this gives a person a new approach to life. By that, he attains life. Say, I have 7 billion children. I can use them, just like I am used to since I was born, because I want to use them. I want to use them for my own pleasure. As if it all is here to serve me with rudeness and craziness. I want to take from the world whatever is good for me alone. And if I relate in the opposite way, I suddenly discover out of this approach, this opposite approach, a lot of emotion, love, connection, warmth. I discover that I feel this. These are not just my relatives and close friends. They are parts of my soul, something very, very internal. And then I attain this feeling of liveliness, of life, society, of the world that is different. I remember, I'd like to share with you one of my experiences from the army. I was on a tank in the army. I worked on a tank, and I remember when I was still new in my unit, one morning we didn't have the time to have breakfast, and one of the older soldiers came, and he had a package of waffles in his hands, and he went up on the tank, and he gave it to me and said, breakfast. And then he took this package and opened it in a way that I've never seen that you open such a package. He said, no, that's not how you open it. He opened it in one move, and then the packet was open. He put it in the center and said, this is your breakfast, or our breakfast. And to this day, I remember this. It's been 20 years since then, and I remember that my impressions of the way he related to things and how he brought this to everyone, I perceived that he has a kind of different spirit to him, or approach, from the way that I was used to thinking about things that are mine and how things belong to everybody else, how to share something with everyone, how to give others of what I have. I saw that with him, now that I look at it in retrospect, and we're talking about feeling myself and feeling others and so on, I now look back and I understand that his perception was completely different from my perception. If I treat these waffles in the way that there's you and me, and if there are waffles, then I give some to you. So he had completely different eyeglasses through which he was looking at the situation. Each one knows a million such experiences from their army service, but this image came to me now to kind of help us focus our discussion, because we wanted to talk about the IDF as a kind of example for connection. There are experiences that you see only when you're a soldier, meaning we don't see them later in our civilian lives. Well, the opposite, in your civilian life, what's respected is how much you disrespect others and show yourself as independent, that you don't care about anybody or anything. This is This shows your independence, your greatness. In our regular lives, it's completely different. I feel it everywhere. A person feels himself as great by what? Disrespecting everyone. I don't give a damn about anybody. I don't want to stand in line or give another space or anything. These are interpreted as weaknesses if I do it. The culture has been so distorted. I understand that it also comes from subconsciously from the nations of exile where we would hide ourselves and want to look nice and good, to show that we're okay, that you can use us, we're beneficial. We wanted to make ourselves as small and hidden as possible. Needed. To show that we're needed. And here I can finally allow myself freedom to do whatever I want and to do the opposite. I understand this, where it's coming from. Well, maybe once, but I already belong to generations that did not have this experience of that you're talking about from the diaspora. Yes, I already see this on my children, but this did happen in the previous generations, and probably this remained. I don't know. But really, this disrespect is... And aside from that, I don't see that society or the state is concerned about uplifting itself. So we are concerned about uplifting ourselves, and we'd like to take this example of the IDF as an example of connection. Nitsa told me before the show about all kinds of impressions that she had. Maybe you can share them with us in this discussion of the feelings a person has. How does it feel in the army, and things that he also yearns for in his civilian life? Okay, I'll give an example of someone who's already doing his reserve duty. He's already been released from the army, and he told us, we asked him questions, and the answers were very interesting. He said that this feeling of the spirit that was created in that time that he served is something that accompanies him. And what he feels towards the guys from the reserve is a different feeling that he felt towards any other friends that he lived with in the civilian life. There's a kind of distinction. It's kind of like a split personality. You have your life and your civilian life, where I have certain laws according to which I live. And I still have this corner or box inside me with the other feelings from the army. But in my civilian life, I live differently according to different rules, and something else happens. And when he comes to his reserve duty, so he opens up this box and gives himself this feeling back. And then the way he behaves is completely different. So he said something really nice. He said, when I come to my reserve duty, I stop thinking me. I begin feeling we. What do we eat? What do we drink? What do we do? How can I make the guys feel better? So one person makes coffee. Even if you don't like coffee, you drink coffee, because this togetherness is the point, not the coffee itself. There's a kind of atmosphere that's there all the time. Now, if we'd ask this person, wouldn't you want to continue living this way all the time? Of course, the answer would be yes. Well, society would be supportive. So there's a kind of desire here, if it was possible, to take this model and to expand it and to truly live it in our regular life. Well, let's hope that this is the way it will happen, more or less, not just with us and through the IDF, but through the crisis in the entire world. But with us, because we have the army, which is so close to so many people. That's why I'm sorry not everybody goes through this process of the beginning stages and then afterwards the reserve duty. It gives you a different feeling and a good approach towards life after childhood. guess it's possible that through the army we can influence our entire lives afterwards. What's so attractive about this togetherness? Why is it that for small moments we feel that in this togetherness there is the greatest power ever? Why are people so happy to go to reserve duty, even though they make faces as if they don't, but really they do want to go? They want to feel this connection, this warmth with their friends. What is it there about it that feels so magical, so warm, so good?
אנחנו פועלים מתוך הרצון, כמו שדיברנו, וכל התופעות הן בתוך הרצון.
Well, we behave out of our desires, as we said, and all of these phenomena come from the desire. What desire? Desire is what I feel, the way I feel the world. I live within this one desire that is divided into the inanimate, vegetative, animal, and speaking levels, the 4 different parts. I don't understand. Okay, look, all in all of nature is a desire to fulfill itself, to enjoy, to feel its life, its liveliness. This is nature. Just like every atom out of which all of matter is made, is a desire to uphold itself, to live, to keep his form, a desire to connect to something with which I can enlarge my life force, my energy, my stability, and to disconnect from something that interferes with my stability. This is all desire. That's all it is. This is the matter of nature. And this desire has 4 degrees, except for the basis of this desire, which we won't talk about. But we have the levels that are called inanimate, vegetative, animal, and human, speaking level. The desire on the inanimate level keeps itself up or holds itself up, and by that feels its fulfillment, its existence, its reality. It experiences itself and fulfills itself. The desire on the vegetative level already needs to break out and to develop towards the sun. It feels good. It wants the air and feels that it's good. There are different periods and the seasons, it multiplies and so on. In short, this is already a desire that develops. It's not just holding itself as the inanimate does. It also develops. And this desire compels this creature to develop in such a way. Let's say it's the hairs that I have on me. It's also vegetative. It also develops. This is how it lives. Afterwards, there's an even greater desire, the animal desire. And what is it different? Each one has its private life. A plant is like to all the other plants. There are different groups of plants, of course, thousands of and millions of types, but each part is on its own. On its own, it has the same patterns, the same periods, the same seasons, the same forms. The animal is a lot more complex. It also moves and seeks all kinds of places where it can fulfill itself better, where it can fulfill his desire. It goes and eats other parts up, and either at the expense of other plants or other animals, it develops in order to fill up its world. And even more than that is the human, the speaking level, which is an even greater desire, which wants to dominate everybody else. The animal doesn't want to dominate. It wants to have what's his. This is my territory. Nobody should come here. You know, like animals usually have. From monkeys to lions, they each have their little territory. Also our cats. And you mustn't touch it, and I want to fulfill my own needs and maybe my offspring, whatever they need, and that's it. However, the human has a much more developed desire. He's got knowledge, and he wants to dominate and use everyone else. It's the greatest desire. And this desire, when we discover it, I discover that within this desire, I feel my life, I feel myself within it, within this desire. So then, there's nothing in the desire, inanimate, vegetative, animal, and human. And me as a human, I feel that I live in a world that is integrated and compiled of these different levels of desire. So then my desire is divided into the inanimate, vegetative, animal, and speaking levels. And within that, I live. And aside from that, if there's anything else, I don't know, I can't say. There are no distances, there's desire. And within this desire, I feel my existence. And now the question is so. What I feel naturally and the way I develop through all these desires, the vegetative, the inanimate, vegetative, and animal, and speaking, the way I develop and feel myself within this desire is called this world. This is what's given. That through nature, through this engine that develops me and develops my different desires by which I feel the inanimate, vegetative, animal, and speaking levels. These are the desires through which I feel. All in all, this world is my desire. And out of this 0 point, we said that there are 4 types of desire. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then there's the 0 point, which is me, who perceives everything else. So the direct, simple approach is that I, just like the inanimate, vegetative, animal, and speaking levels that I see within my desire, I also relate to all these levels. This is called a simple, normal, egoistic approach where I want to use everyone to enjoy everyone at everybody else's expense. It doesn't matter. The most important thing is for me, this is my 0 point. To enjoy, I just want to enjoy it all. And if I begin to change my approach, begin to relate to all the inanimate, vegetative, animal, and human levels differently, that it's all mine, then by that I attain this desire. So instead of repelling and distancing this desire from me, I begin to bring it closer to myself. I begin to have concern for it. Let's say that I feel that this belongs to me. This field belongs to me. It's inanimate. This forest belongs to me, vegetative. These animals that are here in the forest, they also belong to me. They're mine. And the humans, the speaking level, yes, they are relatives, brothers, friends. If I could treat them as my own, I enjoy that. This approach can be egoistic, where I will attain them, compel them, purchase them, and they will be mine. Everybody will belong to me, including all humans who will be my slaves. And this can be an approach towards them as if they were my relatives, that they willingly are so, that I rise above my ego and I don't control them, but the opposite. With love and concern and connection to them, I begin to feel that this is connected to me as my own, not through property against their desire, but with their desire itself. This is called that I make room within myself for others. That I want for others to be more important in me than myself. I don't want to erase it or repress it, or repress anybody else and connect everybody else to me as we usually want to do. But the opposite. I want to use him in this way that I make concessions. I annul myself, and I have him live in me the way he is. And I'm only here in order to serve, in order to connect, in order to take care of. Just like, say, for children and relatives. What is the addition that I feel, that I experience here? I begin to feel that I rise above my nature, from the regular level of the speaking level to an even higher degree, where I begin to feel this general force that resides in all this great desire, which is shared by everyone. And this desire, this feeling, is what we call the upper world. Why is it called upper? Because I rise above my previous approach and make room within my ego for everybody else, so that they will be more important for me now than what they were before when I wanted to use them. Today, I don't want to use them. I'm willing to annul myself in order to give them room within myself as important to me. When you talk about the Israeli family, the Israeli society as one family, how does this connect to these powerful emotions and warmth in our relations? What do you mean powerful? In our previous talks, you illustrated that the vision you illustrate for the Israeli society is that the way we will develop is to become one family. So this is what I meant now. This means being one family. That what? That you're not in me just like my brother or father or son. You're not inside me. I have to make room for you inside me. How do I do that? Only on the condition, only so that I'd be able to attain this higher life, this upper world, this higher society. Only then am I willing to begin to make concessions of myself, of my ego, that within my me I make space for Oren to be instead of me. In accordance to this model that you just showed us now, how do you feel people can reach this unity in their unit in the army? They feel like they understand each other without words, without anything. They're even willing to give their life for their friends. That's right, just like I talk now. So how do they reach it? Can you explain it? Of course, because they feel how much they depend upon each other. There is nothing in the army, we could put it this way, that there's nothing in the army that gives them the basis of relating egoistically to each other, because they're all equal. The general spirit of friendship, there's no competition. Nobody feels pride over the others. Everybody feels one level of life. Whenever they receive a command or something, it's divided between everybody equally. People respect one who helps. They don't call him a sucker, just like on the street, right? The more you make concessions and give to others and say, leave them a better portion of the food, they feel it, they respect it, they value you. They give a completely different room for expression. The expression of the wide heart from this good approach is desired. But I have criticism for it. I don't think it's developed in the right way. There's also a great disrespect for it now. We've already descended from all these things. In the way we treat soldiers and raising their motivation of connection of our
אנחנו לא
root,
מספיקים אחרי קלקול שהחברה עושה.
we aren't really keeping the pace because of the malfunctions that society creates. Well, if we look at the IDF, there's a reason that it's considered one of the more special IDFs, not because of the quantity, but because of the quality. And the quality comes from the spirit that we're able to create. What is special about this, maybe even Israeli spirit that's in there, in this army that does not exist in other armies?
אני לא יודע, אין לי מילים
I
אולי.
don't know, perhaps I don't have the words, but
כלים שלנו,
in our
יש בתוך
vessels,
הרצונות שלנו, נקודה מיוחדת
in our
של
desires, there's a
מסירות
special
נפש.
point
ביהודים,
of devotion in Israelis.
ישראלים אני לא רוצה
In
להגיד,
Jews, I don't want to talk about Israelis because
לא, אני מדבר על...
then you already
היא שאלה על הצבא, ולכן אמרתי ישראלים.
relate that to our period.
אני מדבר על היהודים בכלל.
No, I'm talking about Jews in general.
שהיא נקראת נקודה שבלב.
They have a point in them. You can call it a point in the heart. It doesn't matter how you call it.
היא דוחפת את האדם למסירות
That
נפש.
at its basis pushes a person to this devotion, together with the fears and anxieties about oneself and thousands of qualities that are opposite of it.
אבל המסירות הזאת
But this devotion
היא נמצאת.
is there.
זה ידוע, והייתי ככה בכמה סרטי הוליווד
It's
אפילו.
known. I've also even seen it in a few Hollywood films.
ראיתי
I
שמשתמשים
looked at it as in a psychological research kind of way. I saw that they use it to show that it's this way,
צורות החיבור כאלו,
that there are such forms of connection, of devotion,
מרגיש את זה ומרגיש בצורה
that one feels it, and he feels it in a very powerful way.
וזו הנקודה שאנחנו כן יכולים לעבוד עליה.
And this is a point that we can begin to work on and develop. It's a spark within us.
לכן הקשר כמו ששאלת.
And therefore, this connection that you asked about, it exists in the army, it exists in the society. But again, we need to still to warm it up more, to enlighten it. It's like an ember. It's not really a flame.
מה לגבי העיקרון, אחד העקרונות
What about the principle, one of the well-known principles in the IDF that is also prominent in the differences between the IDF and other armies, that we don't leave wounded men behind. We'll do everything so that we won't leave anyone behind, even at the price of sacrificing others. How do you see this approach between the person and his group and this commitment of the group to each and every person within it? According to the illustration that you've made of this connection, I don't even remember what words you used, but you said that you make room. You said when a person makes room for others within him, then they become close to him. They become close, and even you said more than the father and mother and relatives that are close to me naturally. Well, let's say that you're strange to me and he's strange to me, and I've made room inside me for you. This connection is so powerful that later you see all kinds of expressions of it. So how do you analyze this idea that the IDF is creating, is building, that each soldier attains during his service, that you don't leave anyone behind? Because how can I leave it behind if it's a part of me? They become more important than my own relatives, because I didn't choose my relatives. I didn't choose anybody. Also, not my parents, not my children, and of course, not my more distant relatives. I didn't choose them. And here, when I'm not only choosing, I'm fighting. Again, together with them. And we find ourselves in such great challenges of life and death. And also, it's not just life and death, it's this devotion, this necessity to constantly feel one another. The necessity to be as one desire, as one body, to act together against the enemy, or even using a tank. If we're all in one tank, each one needs to be in his place, and you can't yell at the other. It doesn't work. It only works through internal feeling what each one needs to be doing. And therefore, these conditions, these external conditions, act in order to connect and compel us. But there also needs to be psychological work in accordance to that, of course. But I think that we're coming closer to a situation where also the entire world will feel this way, because this general crisis is like a war. And our ego is like the general enemy, and I need to rise above it, otherwise I won't be able to connect. And if I don't connect with everyone, then I can't be saved from all this great tsunami that is washing over the world. And we have to build the society just like in the army, which is just like a gang, a unit. It has to be, otherwise we won't be able to. Even now they're saying we have surpluses in the world. 50% of the food is being thrown out, and 50% of the people are suffering from lack of nutrition. So why don't you divide it to everyone? But how will you if you don't feel? Just like with those waffles you were talking about, that officer gave you to eat. How will you do it? How will you do it? It's only if you're all connected. Otherwise, food will always lack. There will be surpluses in one place, which no one will need, but they'll throw it away because there's no connection to those who are starving. I want to develop a little bit this devotion. I remember that you gave a little light here from a different angle than what I thought of devotion. And it's like something that's in our DNA. That's right. So what's in this devotion that can help us, if we use it correctly, to fulfill better the vision that you're talking about of a family? How do I take this devotion that is something that I understand that is internalized in me? Not just in the army, in the Israeli society. In the Israeli society, we have this matter where there are no masters and slaves. We've always respected only, if we do have this system, we've always respected wise men, humble men. This is in our education, in our culture, in our blood. A person is respected not because he has great property. This is just a malfunction that's happened in the previous years, but it's never been this way before. A person who was humble, say a good student, a wise student, whatever he is himself, and not anything else. And therefore, this approach is within us and our DNA. Also, connection is related to this, and humility. So then we have in us, to begin with, all kinds of such phenomena in nature, in our behavior, from generations past, that I don't think they disappear completely. Although today they're so distorted, and the younger generations aren't educated this way at all. But because it's in our more internal nature, it can be developed and made more prominent and use them. I also don't see from our external conditions that we find ourselves in that there is another nation or place in the world that has such good conditions to develop the unity and connection, the mutual responsibility in the nation. What's so special about the conditions we received? We are in terrible conditions that are closing in on us on all sides. We will soon feel a great crisis that threatens us in a very difficult way from all directions. And we will find ourselves without any help from the outside, including Jews. And we'll begin to feel ourselves, like the Masada symptom. And in this way, it will be just like the army. And then, with all of our DNA from the past and from today, let's hope that we should reach a state of connection, of mutuality, of integration, of consideration, and then we'll begin to feel the spiritual world, the upper world, which is what our whole life is for, in order to bring us to this higher degree in human development. And then, by that, we'll also give an example to the entire humanity and show how to do it. I'd like to ask here, every time you talk about the upper world, the spiritual world, I'm not able to connect. I've understood from the different conversations we had about the Israeli society that the vision is to be as one family. And suddenly I feel that I'm in the clouds, in an upper world. I don't understand where that is. No. There are no clouds. Well, it is a true cloud, but it's the clouds in our mind. What you feel, your internal feeling, talking about your place in the army, or in the company of your friends, or in connection that's good and nice with others, when you feel together, there are such moments where everyone is connected. Everyone are so nicely together that except for this feeling, I don't want to feel anything else, just not to leave it. Even though you're in the army or with the friends, it's only for moments that it comes. Few moments. And this feeling is the beginning of the great general feeling that if you feel this for a length of time and in the scales of the entire world, this means that you reach the feeling of the upper world, the spiritual world. That's all. It's discovered in such an approach between people where we're all connected together. This world you feel is what you feel with the egoistic relations between everybody, and the upper world is called that above your egoistic world, that you build a new approach, an altruistic, connected world. And mutuality and love and mutual responsibility. So it's a higher state in the relationships with people, if I understood you simply. Yes. Okay, so if there's this vision of one family for the Israeli society, then actually what you're saying is that this same warmth that we felt for moments in our connection in the army or with very good friends, if you multiply that a few times, then you get the spiritual world. What do you mean multiply that the entire society will feel it? Yes, but even not all of it. But there needs to be a big group of people that are willing to make room from them in themselves, in their hearts for others, to be happy that they have such an opportunity. Then one will feel that he's already in a different degree of existence, which is called the upper world, or one family. Yes, it's the same. Except one family is is on part of the vessel of the desire, and the feeling within it is called the upper world. Just like now you say, this world. What is this world? The way we behave according to my nature, to use, to exploit everybody. If we use concepts that people know, like terms that people know, like the spirit of the IDF, it's a spirit, it's an atmosphere, something people feel, the guys feel, the society feels. So, and if you talk about one family, we can talk about an Israeli spirit, which is the feeling we always feel like was lost. Yes, that is suddenly enlivened. That's right. So you call it the upper world, but really it's the spirit that you feel. That's right, there's nothing else. That's what you feel in the family. And everything else will be discovered within it. There's another depth of feeling there that is very great, where we discover freedom, attainment, feelings, because we begin to discover the desire in which we live and the relationships between these two worlds, these two levels of approach, egoistic and altruistic. We begin there to, how do you put it? It's an adventure. By that, a person finds himself, his new world, and nature is pushing us there to reach it and to be in this way. This is our next stage. This is why the crisis is happening, all the problems are happening. This is what we reached. Well, this talk will be over in a minute. Maybe we'll need more discussions on this topic, but still I'd like for you to summarize it for me. We've discussed all kinds of phenomena that we meet when we serve in the army and later as reserve soldiers. And we wanted to discern more this term of connection between people through this and to tie it to the vision that you offer for the Israeli society as one family. What can we learn from looking at the IDF as an opportunity for connection to this vision of the Israeli society as one family? That people who are in danger, that they have nowhere to develop egoistically, you have nothing to buy or do, and to be confused, everything is, all you have is between the dining room and your tank. That's all you have. Maybe you can go to the movies in the evening sometimes. That's the entire army service. So you have this ability to develop the connections between people who are under the pressures of these dangers, and then they depend, the lives of each one, they depend on the others, and so they're prepared for this young spirit it's also a play and also responsibility together, that you rise above your ego. It doesn't swallow you up, and you want to reach this different desire because you feel free in it. You feel that you're in a situation where you neutralize this external society with all its consumerism and everything in it. You neutralize it. What advertisements are there in the army? There's nothing. You're free. You go out to the air, to freedom, and therefore it enables you to begin to connect with people on a different level of existence, especially since you're facing dangers. So it's the same now in the Israeli society. We will soon feel that this crisis washes over us and leaves us with nothing. It will be, we won't think of what to buy, what to run after, and so on. We'll only have what we need that is most necessary. We will barely worry about what's necessary, and that's it. And what's left from that? Then we also have external danger that doesn't disappear, but the opposite. It will grow even more. It will be hard for us to maintain the army because we won't have any American help. You'll see that we'll have zero aid, not only in money, but they won't even want to sell you weapons for your money. We will live in a very, very difficult way. And then this will compel us to unite. And then we will reach a state where we will reach the state we need to reach of all of Israel, our friends, and we will find between us unity and connection and mutual responsibility, and then we'll discover this new life, such a life where everyone is as equal as one, and then you will have no foreign part that can harm you. Our time is up. We have to finish. So thank you very much, Rav Laitman. Thank you, Nitza Mazuz. Thank you for being with us. Until next time, all the best and goodbye.